Welcome to McBain's Legends of the Game podcast, where I'm going to bring you weekly stories from the past.
Evening of a podcast, and today I'm joined by a very special person. He coached the 1991 baseball team that was ranked number one in the state, I believe. And first of all, we're going to ask him a couple of questions. First of all, what is your name?
Jim Szabo.
Jim Szabo. And then were you a faculty member at the school?
Yeah, I taught here from 1977 through 2003. Coached football for a number of years, and I coached baseball for quite a few years.
All right. What subject did you teach?
It depended on the semester, but I was really hired sort of to coach football, but also language arts. They had an opening, and I was teaching English Lit, English Review, did American Lit for a while. Probably the thing I enjoyed the most was teaching photography, and then I also had advanced photography, and those kids were really, really good, and it was a great program. I did speech classes, and it all depended on the semester. One semester I actually there were 9-week sections that we did decoy carving, fish decoy carving.
That's fish decoy carving? So, like,
Yeah.
you would, like, could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, we sort of know what duck decoys are. You throw ducks out in the water and you hope that ducks are going to land in. With fish decoys, the decoy is leaded. It's a piece of wood that's leaded, and it'll drop down. It's designed to look very much like a fish and to fool a fish. And then that's attached to a tie line. It drops through the hole, and a guy stands over the hole with a spear, waiting for something to come in and grab it. And if it's a big enough pike, you nail it. And spearing still goes on locally in Cadillac, Missaukee, Houghton Lake, a lot of places. Kind of interesting, too. That was a really good 9-week section, and we covered a lot of ground in it. But we had a school superintendent that said, oh, those decoys will never be worth anything. And he was so wrong.
Yeah.
So very wrong. And not too long ago, I sold a fish decoy for over $15,000, and then it just sold this last year for over $30,000.
Wow, he was very wrong about that. Those are worth like a lot of money now. That's crazy.
Well, I think the other thing I heard the same person say was Apple Computer will never be anything. And he dismissed it as a company that was going to be successful. And, you see all kinds of things. I went through 21 different school administrators while I was here.
Whoa, that's quite a lot of them.
We had some real good ones.
All right, now we're going to move on to the main reason why you're here is to talk about the 1991 baseball team. Now, what was like some of the individuals on that team? Well,
we had a bunch of good ones, and they were groomed. They were interested in the game. As ninth graders, they composed a lot of the varsity, and those kids were unhappy. The coach told me, oh, those kids will never be anything. And I'd been in and out of baseball. Sometimes I had my own kid at home. But I came back into it when those kids were going into their sophomore year, and we sat down and we talked about it. We talked about what it would take to come up with a winning program. And I would say, yeah, the kids bought into it. With individuals, if you have a baseball team, you've got to develop pitching.
Yeah.
And you need to have either 3, 4 would be nice. And they're limited to how many innings they are allowed to pitch. But it's not just your pitching. You got to have a great catcher. You don't want pass balls. And then these kids were really willing to work hard all the way from their sophomore year through the senior year. We didn't have the baseball field that's out there now. And that group really helped to develop that field. They laid the sod. We had dads come in and relatives who came in to put all the block up for those dugouts. We had a number of masons that were involved in that. Now, individually, Tim Blackiston was an outstanding senior. He could throw repetitiously in the upper 90s as a fastball, and he could throw a 2-seam, fastball, 4-seam, had a good changeup, and had a wicked curveball. Johnny Ensing, and Tim went on to become a successful dentist.
Dentist?
Yeah, he's down in Tennessee or Kentucky, I've forgotten. And then Johnny Ensing was an all-state player. Johnny was a great pitcher, too, threw a wicked changeup, good fastball. I think the thing those kids really had in common was they were very coachable. And then the third one was Jesse Garcia. And he was a kid from Lucas. He lives in Ohio now. I'm still in touch with some of these people, some of these kids. And I would also have to give my catcher, he was a 4-year starting catcher. He started out as a freshman with that group that didn't win anything. And we talked and we worked and worked and worked. And he really was a 4-year starting catcher, and something cut loose early in his sophomore year, and all of a sudden he was a gun throwing that ball down to second base. Then we still had to work on quickness coming out of the box and blocking balls. That's an ongoing thing. I will say this about Scott Cruz now. All these kids, at least half the team, because some of the kids were tied up with basketball, I'd get a call, "Coach, you coming in the next morning?" And I said, "Yep, we'll be there, 6 in the morning." And Scott Cruz never got to play the infield beyond being our catcher. And he says to me this one morning, he says, "Coach, I want the record." And when he said that, I knew what he was talking about. That would be the most ground balls picked up before 8 o'clock in the morning, caught, thrown back to a first base side. And he wanted that record, and the record had been about 520. And it's a lot of repetition. I would give him 1 hoppers, 2 hoppers, 3 hoppers, hit a lot of stuff to his backside on backhands, and he was excellent. It could have been anybody's starting infielder at first, second, short, or third. Well, I don't know if I was sweating more or if Scott was sweating more, but he ended up with 775 ground balls picked up before 8 o'clock in the morning, and he didn't miss very many of them. Of course, all those were being thrown back. And that's really the kind of dedication that team had. If you're going to be good, you got to play the game. You got to work hard at it. Pitching, there's so much stuff that goes on there. You have to develop accuracy. You have to develop speed. You have to be coachable. We had a fourth pitcher that I didn't bring up from our junior varsity until we got into our pre-district game. And that was Andy Jacobson, who went on to play minor league ball with the White Sox. And I could have had Andy up there as the number 4 pitcher, but it made sense to me to keep him down at the JV level. He was going to get a lot of bats in. He was going to get a lot of pitching in. And as it turned out, he was batting, I think, a little over 400 at the JV level, so he was making good contact. And, some of these kids at the JV level can throw pretty good and hard. But I brought him up for our district game, started him at first base because he had a reach that he could go up over 11 feet. He was like 6'7", 6'8" when he graduated. And good kid. And it's interesting after that game, you hear from parents. A lot. And I had to pull a senior who had started most games at second base while I shifted, so we had our best sticks and best players up against Mesig. And at the end of the game, I had an irate mother come up because I pulled her son. He couldn't play. And she says to me, her departing words are, "Oh, that Jacobson kid, he'll never be a ball player." And that's kind of some of the stuff you have to hear. But, McBain, we had an excellent baseball team. Jim Szabo was an excellent softball coach. I don't know if Jim lost a handful of games in any one season. And we had other kids that contributed big to that team. Adam Gildy was my center fielder, did a nice job out there. And Adam was batting just over 700, the real thing. And there was a lot of luck involved. Well, we had Adam batting. We had Johnny Ensing that was batting 400, became an all-stater. Every part of baseball needs to be developed well. And, I appreciate basketball, but just about anybody sooner or later can hit a hoop.
Yeah.
Not anybody can get up on the mound and throw straight, be coachable, get the strikes, get people out. And those three pitchers did so. And then you've got to develop your sticks too. Probably the number one thing for developing a really great bat is to play lots of catch. And that's with dads, that's with your moms, that's with other kids. Because if you're playing catch, boom, the ball comes up here, you want to grab it and know where it's coming. And here, then you're doing that with different speeds, velocities, different ball movements. A two-seam fastball and four-seam fastball, they travel differently. I used to teach a type of curve that Denny McLean used to throw, and it's not hard on the elbow or arm. But if you're batting, the ball would be coming behind you, and then it would slip back in on the bottom corner of the plate is what we were aiming for. And a lot of the kids could throw that. It's a wicked curve. The curve ball that Tim Blackiston threw came in fast, hard, and just dipped. And a lot of teams couldn't catch up with that. But yeah, a lot of practices, a lot of early practices. We used to take maybe a couple weeks off from football once the football season was over. But the kids that weren't involved in basketball, they were working. And John Camphouse was a good first baseman for me. We had an exchange student from Japan, and nothing got past him at third base. And we used to say, it's a philosophy, I did that, I coached softball for a year too. Nothing's going to get past our infield. Nothing. You got to knock it down, unless it was an honest base hit, something right in the gap, that type of thing. But you don't develop a great baseball program without a commitment to the game. The only skills game that I think I would equate it with might be hockey. If you can't skate, if you can't handle a stick, you're not going to be very good.
Yeah.
In baseball, you got to pitch well, you need to catch well, you need to see the ball well so that you hit it well. It's kind of interesting that season, Jim Szabo, who taught math here for a long time, algebra, geometry, we went down to Beale City and we grabbed 4 games, beat Beale City 4 times down at Beale City. That's really hard to do with their officials, with their kids. And Beale City is an excellent baseball team. Pine River in the right year could be an excellent team. Mesick in the right year. Jim Lina used to be the coach up there. And they had 7 Little League teams feeding into their varsity. And probably the best we ever did in McBain was we had maybe 1 team, maybe 2 playing summer ball. But those kids played a lot of summer ball. So, you know, it was fun. There's a lot of great stories that I could tell you about the game. And that was an exciting season. We jumped out to 14-0. And Mr. Harv Lucas took the choir kids down to Ann Arbor. And my starting pitcher, Tim Blackiston, got here and said, "Coach, I don't think I can pitch. I don't think I can make it." I said, "What's going on?" And, well, he told me, and he wasn't feeling real well. I put him on the mound. He had stayed up all night.
Oh, I see. That's probably why. Well,
and we had 2 games against Lake City. Mike Allen was the coach up there. And I said, "Well, look, give it your best shot." And we lost the first game, so we dropped to 14-1.
No.
And then we took the second game. I don't remember how we finished up the first one, but I had the 3 pitchers that could go the distance, and we were fine. And we dropped 2 games to Everett, which was kind of a surprise to us, but when you get to be a senior, you'll understand senioritis. Kids get tired. They sort of want school to be over. We had a great baseball team. And then we finally lost 3-1 in the district to Jim Lina's baseball team up in Mesick, 3-1. And they were a solid team. If we'd gotten past them, I think we would have really gone a long ways.
Yeah. What was the expectation for the 1991 season compared to the previous one?
Well, as a juniors, that group was really good. They just didn't quite have maybe some of the strength, but it was a good team. I don't know, we were at least 50-50. But I knew those kids were going to get better. And then Scott Cruz, my catcher, he went on to the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
He was a tough kid, but he was a nice kid, and once again, very coachable. All those kids hit well in their senior year. Pretty darn coachable. I wasn't surprised that we were going to win as many games as we did. And I think that team went about 20 wins and 5 losses. I'd have to think about that. Mesek, Lake City, 2 games to Everett, and I've forgotten who the other game was. Maybe we were 20-4, I've forgotten. But no, I knew the kids were going to be better, and they were good baseball players. And we would have played with anybody and against anybody, and with my pitching staff, if we can call them that, I think we could have beat just about anybody. And those kids were developed, though, and they wanted it. And probably toward the very end, senioritis, kids were kind of ready to move on, and it happens. And I did everything I could do. I think the kids did everything to do. Ben Blackiston was my assistant coach, and that was Tim's dad, but he was excellent and just a good motivator. We could set up drills, and I would run some things, and he would go with the kids and get things going on his end. But Ben Blackiston, a great man. He was a local preacher, and then he would get out of his church duties and come join us for baseball practices and all the games. And he was pretty major in getting those skills up with the kids, too.
All right. What was the mindset coming into the season since the previous one? What was your record the previous season, 1990?
I want to say it was about 13-12, maybe 14-12. It was good. I didn't know if we would lose any games. And, my attitude when we were coaching football, we're going to win. And the kids would be equipped to win. And quite frankly, football's a rough, tough game for rough, tough kids. And you're either going to beat the hell out of the opponent or they're going to beat the hell out of you. And you have to be prepared with being bigger, faster, stronger, and wanting it, staying sober on weekends. All that comes into play. And that commitment was to football. I don't know. It's kind of funny because Coach Maloney was one of my quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And he did a great job. His brothers played too. They did a great job. We probably don't play Cadillac in football anymore. That's a good story, but we're coming off the bus. Well, back up a little bit. Gail Damhoff was a super athletic director, probably the most organized person in the whole school district. And he was an AD, but he also assisted with football. But for some reason, somebody backed out around the 6th or 7th game of our football season. And he asked me if I wanted him to find somebody to play. And I said, sure, absolutely. Next day, he came back and said, Cadillac has an opening. Do you want to play Cadillac? And I said, sure. Well, we arrange it. We come off the bus, and Cadillac's coach comes up to me and shakes my hand. And he says, hey, Coach, we'll take it easy on you. And I said, hey, thanks. I really do appreciate that. And we were up about 30-0 at half on Cadillac's field. And I used to run 3 strings. We had a gold team, a green team, and our white team. And this is at the JV level, but there's a lot of violence going on at the JV level if it's played right, and you got to play by the rules. Well, I let my first string or gold team play the first full quarter. Then I put the second team in, the green team in. We get into the beginning of the third quarter, I started with green. And then put the white team in, which is kind of like a third string. And Mr. Maloney comes up to me with about 2.5 minutes left in the game. He says, Coach, let me in the game. I said, Pat, look at the score. Look at the score. Nah, I let these other kids play. And, we were in some tight games sometimes, and let the white team play. He comes back up with about 2 minutes to go, and he begs me to get him back in the game. And I said, Pat, no. With about 45 seconds left to go in the game, he comes up and he's begging me, Coach, please please. Okay. All right. And then I gave him our starting center, kept the white team out there. And I said, but you got to keep the ball on the ground. You can call your own plays, which I never did. I always called the plays. And I'm talking to somebody to the right of me, and I watched the first play, and it's a dive off the right side foot of the guard. And I'm talking to somebody else, and I watch the play, and it's off the left tackle. Well, we're doing good. We're about 15 seconds left in the clock, and I'm talking to somebody, and look, there goes the ball sailing through the air, and Pat throws the ball up, and we score another touchdown.
Oh.
And we didn't hit 50 points, but we were close. And we did let Cadillac score one game. Now I have to go shake the coach's hand after the game. And he did shake my hand, but he didn't say a whole lot. But I can tell you, you've got a great football coach who's got the right instinct to win. And if people will follow him, he's got a good plan and a good program. And so again, that's just one of those stories. But he was excellent, and the kids on that team were excellent. And we were carrying 46, 47 kids at that point, just on the JVs.
Okay. Did you guys know you were ranked number 1 in the state? Have at some point, or did you just figure that out after a little bit?
The Detroit Free Press used to post rankings all the time. Tim Klein was the head football coach up in Frankfurt. I knew him pretty well. Tom Atkinson had been the head football coach down in Beale City. But Tim was also the baseball coach in Frankfurt. And we played Frankfurt twice up in Frankfurt. It was probably about our 7th, 8th game, somewhere in there. We beat Frankfurt. And Frankfurt was a really solid team. And then we went down to Beale City. Now, Tim sat on the panel or the group of people who come up with rankings. And he saw us, and he had a good team. About that time, he had 2 boys playing baseball, Derek and Kyle. And Kyle was a quarterback for Frankfurt, got him into the state championship game. They won, but he could throw left-handed or right-handed. Well, that was the kind of people that Tim could put out. And he coached baseball up there for a number of years, and they were excellent. We go down to Beale City, almost always. They're ranked pretty good. And we slapped them around, and it was fun. And it was a nice baseball ride coming home. But I would say about the time we had 12 wins under our belt, here's the Detroit Free Press, and there we are sitting number 1. And we were number 1 a long ways through the season. And I knew the team to get past was going to be Mesik. They were a tough team. Pine River in the right year could be really, really tough too. So we did well. And I have to go back to the kids, though. They wanted it. They called me up frequently the night before, Coach, are you coming in? And I would never say no. And most of that was working with pitchers, catchers, and a lot of infield. And they just had the right stuff. And they wanted it. You got to want it. And if you don't want it, you're never going to win at anything. And a lot of those kids went on to be successful in businesses and things like that, too. And, coaching is more than throwing a baseball or throwing a football in. You're developing kids who hopefully are sober, not on drugs, they're on time. I mean, pretty demanding.
Yeah.
And I never killed anybody if they were out drinking the night before, but we dealt with them.
Yeah.
And kids are going to be kids. I understand all that. Everybody that coaches understand that, but you do have an athletic policy and school rules, and you got to sort of live by that.
Was there a lot of pressure on you guys, or some of the kids really pressured about, since they're ranked number 1, that are they thinking about it too much, or?
No. I think that season came out as I had planned it. We're going to win a lot of games. And I think they expected to win a lot of games. We didn't expect to drop that first game to Lake City.
Yeah.
And we were a much better team, but you play out your best kids, you give them those opportunities. I think it came out the way that I expected it. And any team that gets off well into softball, even track, baseball, kids are getting tired, they're having fun, but they're about at their end. So that's the tough thing, I think, as a coach to sort of be up against. And then you've got your own set of circumstances in the classroom, because I was language arts. I corrected a lot of papers over the years.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing the sun come up more than once, because I told kids I'd have papers back to them, and then you go to school.
And then you're just like there for like a long time, and then you lose track of time.
Well, with the paper thing, I always kind of wondered what it'd be like to be a gym teacher. And once in a while, they'll just throw them the dodgeballs. And
Yeah, then you don't really have to.
But in my teaching, Marcia Sontman was an excellent language arts teacher, too. There's just a lot of paperwork. And that's all coming to a head in the springtime, because you got finals, exams coming up. You got a cover material that you've got to get to. In English lit, there were concepts like the English language is derived from the Western division of the Germanic branch of the Indo-European family of languages, and then you expect kids to know what that is and to be able to write about it.
I mean, I don't even know what that was.
Well, you would if you were in that class, and it was definitely a college-bound class. But I can't say enough too about the teaching, and I don't know what the school's like here right now. I can tell you there was an excellent staff that taught well, had high expectations of the kids, and then you sort of have to instill that into the kids too, to be their best and hope that they can do their best. And it wasn't just about the sports program in baseball. It was the academics and hoping these kids are going to continue to grow and go on and do real well.
Since we're getting low on time, what was how far did you guys make it into the playoffs that year?
Well, Mystic was district, and we had to get past them, and then Mystic won the next 3 games after that. I don't remember if they were in the final game itself or not. So yeah, we got bumped out pretty early, but I knew at the beginning of the season that was going to be the team to beat Pine River, Beale City, and Frankfurt.
Seems as if we're all out of time for right now. Thank you for coming here to be able to do this podcast.
This is one of our original helmets from that 91 team.
It's very bright compared to the ones that we got now.
Well, Nick Mentel, who used to be with McBain's Body Shop, he custom painted those for us, and I kind of designed it, but he put them together.
That's cool of him to do that.
Yeah.
But I guess we're out of here for time right now, and we'll see you.
Go Ramblers!
Yeah.
Have fun this spring and do well once you graduate, too. Good luck to you.
All right. See you guys in the near future.